Welcome you all. Greetings from sunny Monterey, California. We're representing the whole country on this call. We're very excited to have you. The purpose of this webinar is to give you some information about our programs, our master's degree, our executive leaders program, as well as the Emergence. We have representatives from our alumni pool who have taken the time out of their day to share their experiences with you. I'll introduce them. First, we have Derek Berkston. He's the chief of our executive leaders alum. We have Amanda Kulikowski. She's a lieutenant with Novi, Michigan Police Department. She's one of our master's alumni. Jason Lyon, he's battalion chief with Billings, Montana Fire Department. And Laura Mellon, the public engagement manager with the city of New Orleans, the Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness in New Orleans, Louisiana. She's our alumnus from the Emergence Program. So welcome panelists, thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to navigate the website and turn it over to David for the background of CHDS. David?
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're glad you're all here, and thank you very much for your interest in the Center for Homeland Defense and Security and its programs. As Heather mentioned, today we're going to talk about our master's degree program, our executive leaders program, and our emergence programs. All three of those application periods have been extended to June 30th, given the COVID-19 crisis that we're in right now. So there's still plenty of time to apply for all three programs. If you have any questions, there's lots of links and 800 numbers on the application web pages. Heather is probably going to scroll through some of those. All of the information we're going to be talking about on all three programs, as well as the center, you can find at chds.us. It's all open source. When you start an application, you will set up a user ID and a password, and you can come back and forth. We don't look at any of the information that you're submitting until your application is complete, and then we'll go ahead and we'll process that. So again, all three deadlines have been extended to June 30th, so there's plenty of time to apply for the master's, the emergence, and the executive leaders programs. A little bit of background for those of you not familiar with the Center for Homeland Defense and Security. We're located at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. It's about 2 hours south of San Francisco. We've been located here going back to the months after the 9/11 attacks. Congress and then the Department of Justice realized that there needed to be a center for all of you and your colleagues around the country to be able to come together, explore these emerging threats that we're facing, enhance your skill sets, learn how to be innovative policy and strategy developers, and go back and really lead the charge in terms of looking over the horizon and how we need to evolve our policy strategies and operations, and work collaboratively and share resources in new and innovative ways. So that was really what we were set up to do. Why the Naval Postgraduate School? We are not a military program, we're civilian based, but the Naval Postgraduate School has over 100 years of experience with adult learners, professionals with a lot of experience coming in, using those experiences as part of the learning process. As well as their research capabilities. They do tremendous work in emerging technologies, asymmetric threats, and in other areas. So the Naval Postgraduate School has been the perfect home to use as a springboard to take all of that expertise they have, and that's traditionally been used for our military partners and the international community, but turn it inward for all of you, the local, state, federal, military, private sector folks that are all involved in public safety, public health, emergency management, all of the different public safety elements that we all have to have around the table to work through a lot of these complicated programs. So that's a little bit of background on the center. So we're going to actually go through all three programs. We do have alumni here that are going to share some of their experiences. All of our classroom programs, the emergence, the executive leaders, and the masters, share the same learning model. We have cross-cutting objectives for all of them that are very similar, but they're designed differently to cater towards the different needs of you and your colleagues as you go through your career paths, depending on where you are and how deep you want to get into the learning experience. So we've kind of crafted three options here with the master's degree, really covering from the mid to senior level folks with a lot of experience, the Executive Leaders Program for those that are at the senior decision-making levels, and then the Emergence Program for those that are in the first half of their career. So we're going to walk right through them. We'll start a little bit with some of the commonalities with the learning model. And that really starts with the cohort. We go to great pains to craft a cohort of 32 individuals that really are a snapshot of Homeland Security around the country. And when we say Homeland Security, we're talking about all of the public safety elements. We're not just talking about bad guys overseas. We're talking about all the emerging threats. Matter of fact, we've had a lot of discussions prior to COVID-19 about pandemics. That's always been one of the elements that we've looked at, as well as natural disasters, as well as a number of domestic threats that we're seeing in our communities around the country. So the cohorts for all of our programs will be 32 local, state, federal, territorial, tribal, private sector in the case of Emergence and the Executive Leaders Program, but we are not allowed under our charter from Congress to include the private sector in our master's degree program because that is a degree granting program. But we come up with that cross section, and then we look at all the different disciplines that contribute to the safety of this country. So we're going to have the emergency management, the law enforcement, the fire, the EMS, the public health, transportation, utilities. We're going to have all of the different Department of Homeland Security components. We also get a lot of participation from the FBI and other federal partners. So we're trying to get as broad of a cross-section as possible because the learning really rests with the experiences that you bring in. We use that as a springboard for our discussions and debates. So we're also looking geographically. We want folks from all over the United States and all over the territories so that you can bring your unique perspectives and experiences into the classroom, and we can leverage that as part of the learning experience. So I'm going to pause right there. And Heather, why don't we hear a little bit from our alumni in terms of the cohort and how that cohort model might have been unique and lended itself to their learning experience.
Amanda, what was your cohort like? Can you give us examples of folks that were sitting next to you?
Sure. We had folks from all over the United States. We had anywhere ranging from members of FEMA to local law enforcement to emergency managers. We also had an attorney in class that actually writes some of the executive orders for her state government. So we had a great variety of people that allowed me to learn not only from, I have a law enforcement background, so I tend to think in that law enforcement box, but it allowed me to open my mind to some of the other challenges that people have when they're working with law enforcement. So it helped me to learn from their experiences as well.
Jason, what surprised you the most about the cohort makeup?
Heather, I'd say I wasn't surprised because, you know, the reason that I chose NPS was so that I could work and collaborate with people from all these different fields. I guess if you want to phrase it as a surprise, the piece that was most helpful to me was, you know, throughout my career, you know, I've associated with a lot of different firefighters and fire departments, but getting to talk about fire department problems with firefighters is one thing, but getting the perspective of Custom and Border Patrol or the Secret Service or even a public health perspective, because we share a lot of these problems, but hearing from their frames, not just a predominantly fire department frame, was the thing that has been most meaningful to me about our cohort.
And Laura, you were with Emergence. What was your cohort like?
Well, yeah, I would definitely echo what Jason and Amanda said. You know, we had folks from all different disciplines and all across the country. And I think what's really unique about the Emergence program is that you're with a group of your peers who are, you know, new or in the middle of their careers. In a lot of other sort of leadership or training programs, you're often learning from managers or executives. So it was really great to be alongside a group of people who were at the same point in our careers and really talking about these large issues across disciplines.
And Derek, with the Executive Leaders Program that you attended, both you and Laura had private sector in your cohorts. Tell me more about that.
Sure. So that was definitely an interesting addition, as having a representative from UPS. We have a major UPS hub in our community to hear their perspective related to Homeland Security and just general safety overall, to hear what the public sector or the private sector has to deal with on a regular basis, and what we do on the public side, what impacts them. And I think that was one of the things that really resonated with our whole class, is to hear that private sector experience of rules and regulations and what kind of impact that has on day-to-day operations for businesses in the community.
All right, thank you. So some additional cross-cutting parts of our learning model that all three programs experiences are focus on the policy and strategy level. We don't get into the tactical operational. That tends to be more associated with training, which is, of course, very important to make sure everyone to the left and right of you know what they're doing when we go operational. But what we try and do is prepare everyone for that decision-making leadership role, where you have to look at the higher levels of thinking, with the critical thinking, the analytical abilities. How do we research? How do we use fact-based evidence to then support our decisions and develop policies and strategies that are going to move us forward and evolve our operations as our threats and our risks are evolving. So all of our programs will hold the discussions and the debates and the learning at the higher policy and strategy level experience. So let's get into the master's degree program first, then we'll go into the executive, and then we'll go into the emergence. And we'll lay out a little bit of the basics about the program. We'll go back to our alumni. They can talk about their experiences in those individual programs. And we'll work into some of the questions that I see that you're posting already on the Q&A. So thank you very much for using the Q&A for your questions. So one of the challenges we had when we stood up the master's program, it was the first program we stood up, was provide an experience at that graduate executive level for folks to come in and do a deep dive into the topics and the content that we need to be focusing on, and give them a chance to really enhance those critical thinking skills that are very important at the leadership level. However, the trick was, we were told everyone needs to be able to keep their day job. So we had to come up with a flexible model. We were one of the first ones to actually do this, which was to build a hybrid program model. Now it's a little bit more common in academic institutions around the country. So we have an 18-month master's degree program that is a hybrid of distance learning, online learning, with face-to-face in-residence learning. We're on a quarter basis. You take 2 courses at a time. What it looks like is you come together for that a first week of in-residence, and you finish 2 courses. You're there for a weekend. Then a second week in the in-residence, you're starting 2 new courses, and then you continue through distance learning online to complete those courses. Now, with the restrictions that we've all been under with the COVID-19, we have moved those in-residences to remote learning. People have stayed on track for their degrees. They haven't fallen behind. And we've been able to take what we usually do through in-residence and make it very interactive online, a mixture of traditional kind of online learning with much more interactive, providing flexibility for folks with different work schedules and different time zones to come together. And so we've been very flexible in working through that, with the intent that the in-residence will be restored, once we're able to do that and restrictions are lifted. So as we go ahead and we're going into this next application period, we expect to use that same model so that once you start this degree, 18-month degree, you'll be able to stay on track for that. The in-residence are just under 2 weeks, as I mentioned. The faculty for all of our programs, especially with the masters, is that mixture of real academic thought leaders. A lot of them have actually written books on the various topics that you'll be studying, but matching them up with practitioners, people that have been out there, that have done it, that know where the rubber meets the road, and how you can actually apply what you're learning in the classroom and take it out and apply it in the real world. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. The papers, the thesis that you'll be working on are all meant to solve problems. for your agency, for your jurisdictions, and to help move Homeland Security, public safety further down that learning curve. So all of it is meant to be applicable. You're supposed to, the models, the theories, the discussion, the debates that you're going to have with your fellow cohort members all come back and transition as part of that payback that your agencies and your organizations get for sponsoring your participation. For all of our programs, and Heather will touch on this in the applications, we work in partnership with agencies and organizations to sponsor you, because after all, it's allowing you time to complete the coursework and time away from the office. So that payback, that benefit back to them, comes back not only with you as an enhanced leader within the organization in terms of the skills and capabilities that you've developed through that master's program and our others, but also in terms of your products, in terms of the papers in that thesis, in terms of the ideas that you generate with your cohort mates, many of which happen after hours, developing ideas of how you can do things better. And that does translate in part of the payback. Now, the master's degree program, as well as the executive leaders and Emergence, all expenses for local, state, and DHS components are covered. So that is a pretty significant opportunity there, given the cost of education around the country right now. That cost share with your agency is the support and the participation. So the tuition, the books, in the case of the master's degree program, making sure everyone has the same technology footing. So we are providing notebooks and computers for the learning process to make sure that everyone has the same technology capabilities. The travel, the per diem, everything is covered thanks to our sponsor, which is FEMA under the Department of Homeland Security. They provide a great partnership. They understand the importance of education. There's no better example than right now with the COVID-19 response, where our alumni all around the country, local, state, federal, private sector, are leading the response and drawing on the education that they got through our programs. So we're fortunate to have their support and to make these opportunities available at the no cost. So Heather, I'm going to pause right there so we can hear a little bit more from our alumni, but why don't you walk through the application process? Because just like any graduate program, you're going to be competing against a large applicant pool, and you have the traditional things you would expect in terms of an academic application process for a degree.
Right, great, thanks. And I saw that one of the questions is how many people apply to the program every year, and I'll go through those numbers with you. But as you can see here, I'm scrolling through the master's program information page. You can see when the deadlines are, and you can also see when you'll be in residence. So like David said, there's 2 weeks where you'll be in residence and taking 2 courses at a time. We do have a large federal audience today, and so your points of contact for your component at DHS are listed here. And they do have internal processes. Each component has different ones, so check in with your component lead, and they can help you make sure that you're internally vetted before you do the official application, which is here on our website. So what do you need to qualify for the program? You just need to have a 3.0 GPA, and if you're a lot like many of our folks who weren't really paying attention in undergrad and don't have the 3.0, we would just ask that you take the GRE or the Miller's Analogy test. And that is because, you know, this is a significant, it can be a painful program. So there's a lot of writing, and we just want to make sure that the people that get through the application can actually finish the program. So the application is meant to be hard. It's meant to give you a taste of what it's like in our classroom. And so that's there for a reason. The other requirement is that you're a full-time government official at the local, state, tribal, territorial, or federal DHS level. We also accept Title 32 National Guard. So those are sponsored. FBI, NORTHCOM, other federal agencies pay tuition for the program, for the master's program. And there are about 600 people who open the application every 6 months. 150 to 175 will actually finish. We'll have about 75 reapplies, and then 32 will be selected from that pool every 6 months. So it's not uncommon for people not to get in the first time, and we just ask that you review your essays and retool them for the next go round. You can always call me, email me, and we can go over your strategy if you like. So the application, what's it made out of? It's your resume, your 3 letters of recommendation. Again, the most important comes from your agency as a sponsor to say, hey, this person is critical to the agency, they're a current or emerging leader, and we're going to give him or her the time to successfully complete the program. That's essential for the application. The other 2 letters are important. They can be anybody who's in a public safety, homeland security, somebody you've worked with who can attest to your critical thinking, to your ability to problem solve, and has worked with you on a number of places. So those 2 letters, and then 5 essays. Those 5 essays are 3 to 5 pages apiece. Yep, they are. No pictures, no graphs, that kind of thing. Just really talking about how you think. We assume that you're very good at what you do at the tactical operational level, but what we don't know is how you think about things. So as you think about what we're asking for each essay, there's very clear guidance in the application. Think about how you think and how do you identify problems? How do you evaluate them? How do you synthesize information? Those are the kinds of things we're looking for in the essays. And again, we can always talk strategy in an email or on the phone. So the application, next deadline is June 30th, and then the one after that will be December 1 for the classes we'll offer in 2021.
Why don't we go to our alumni and hear about their experience with the program and the benefits they got out of it.
Amanda, why did you apply?
So I initially applied because I was excited that it was a free program, I'm not going to lie. And I got into the program luckily on my first attempt, so that was really exciting. But I also applied because I always want more. I'm that type of person. I wanted more out of my career, and I thought that this would be a great way to network with more people and get better ideas and, you know, learn how to research and do things proper. My particular agency is very into doing things right. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing things right from that perspective as well. And I thought it would help me along in my career.
Jason, how did you hear about the program and why did you apply?
So I went to a FEMA grant review in 2017, and I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of really, really smart, fully engaged individuals. And it was unusual because they all seemed to know each other or have something in common. And I finally had to ask one of them, like, hey, how do you guys know each other? And they said, we're all NPS alum. And I'd never heard of the program until then. And I had 2 different people pull me aside and say, hey, if you haven't heard about it, you've got to apply. We think you've got the right thinking skills and you get how people work together. And, you know, after just that weekend of work with a bunch of alum, I knew it was the right thing for me. Because just like you've talked about, Heather, these people were from all different walks of the Homeland Security enterprise. And as an outsider at that time, it was fascinating to get to sit in and listen to how they broke down issues and talked about policies and where money would be well spent. And it was eye-opening for me. And I knew right then and there that I wanted to be in that boat.
Amanda, any advice for like how it's used after you graduated? How are you thinking differently? Is there a specific project you can quickly go through real quick?
You know, I was able to make a key contact while I was at NPS through an instructor there. Since then, I have completely changed our booking process at our police department. We've went fully digital. We don't use pen and paper anymore on that process. And we've been able to increase our risk reduction and also our accountability standards at our police department just based on that one project. And that's just one contact that I made at NPS. The opportunities that I've been given since completing NPS is limitless. I mean, I have a whole network of people I can go to anytime I have a problem and get an intelligent answer back instead of the, I don't know, I don't know. I'm not sure. I get intelligent answers with source material that I can speak intelligently on for my police department and my community.
We have some great questions here that came up in the Q&A. So why don't we run through those real fast before we move on to our Executive Leaders Program. Back to our two alumni here. One question was, how is it like balancing a full-time job and the master's degree program?
So the balance is, at first, I was extremely stressed. I hadn't been to school in a little while, so that didn't help as well, but it's manageable, but you have to be very committed. It's not a program like some of the other, I'm from a law enforcement background, so from the law enforcement programs where they're like, oh yeah, you just sit in there and you're done. Yeah, you get your program. This program pushes you, but it pushes you in ways that you don't think that you can accomplish something, but then you do, and then you realize, wow, I can't believe I just did that. The balance is real. I'm not going to lie to you guys that are listening. The balance is difficult but manageable. You just have to be very committed. That's what my advice would be on that.
I just want to add that there's writing coaches, our faculty meet with you any time of day or night because they want to make sure that you're successful. Your colleagues in your class are going to help you. Everybody helps everybody over the fence once you get in.
That's very true. I never had more support in an educational arena than I did at NPS, be it the library, writing coaches, like Heather said, just incredible support, even from the staff, if you want to bounce ideas off them, very readily available all the time. And I was a East Coaster, and I was able to make it work on the West Coast. So if I can do it, any one of you can do it. I promise you that.
Jason?
I'd say the same thing. If you're, and I hate to say it, you already warned me, Heather, but if you're looking just for a degree, just to check a box, this might not be the best choice for you. However, if you want to learn how much work you can do and push yourself to be a better person and work hand in hand with some of the nation's top leaders in the field, as Amanda said, you got to be willing to make some trade-offs in family life and at work, but those trade-offs are worth it 100%. Problems in my daily job now that might have caused me a lot of headaches and grief are a lot simpler now because my NPS experience expanded what I can do, how you can manage time, how you can solve problems. The end result is worth every bit of it.
Thank you, Jason. Heather, a couple of questions for you. Can you clarify the GRE? Is it required, not required? When should someone take it? Same with the Miller's analogy, please.
Yeah, it's a guidance. It helps us. It's not required as it is for most master's degree programs. But if you don't have a 3.0, we recommend highly that you study for it and test well and take the time. If you don't like math, I would take the Miller's analogy test. If you like math and science, the GRE is the better choice. And
right.
Readily available, even in the COVID times. You can look at the GRE site or the Miller's analogy site to find the nearest testing center. They're starting to open up again.
We had a question here about opportunities for retirees. For all of our programs, you need to be working for an agency and you need to be a full-time employee with them, being paid through the public funds. That's sort of how we look at it, is where the pay comes from. Heather, about previous academic work credits counting towards this degree, and if you don't have your undergraduate yet, can you answer that, please?
Yeah, we've had folks go and get their undergraduate just so they can apply to this master's program. It's a requirement, actually. You have to have an undergrad degree. So make sure that it's from an accredited college. So we work with the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, actually grants this degree, but we don't accept national accreditation. And so that can be a sticky point. If you do go for undergrad, make sure that they're regionally accredited. National accreditation is accepted by the Naval Postgraduate School.
And again, if you have any questions, contact Heather, or there's email, phone numbers on all the application pages. We can get you an answer very quickly, so you know kind of where you stand and what qualifications you may need. Heather, you want to talk a little bit? There was a question here about the faculty, criteria for their selection. Who do we look for in our instructors?
Oh, in our instructors.
Yes.
Well, we pair academics with practitioners that have national experience. So I think that Amanda, maybe you could talk about the instructors a little bit. But the important thing is that you have the theory and the practice to give you the best combination of expertise in our classroom.
I can talk about the instructors a little bit. We had instructors that were actually on the ground in the Middle East instructing us. We had Bruce Hoffman come in, who's a terrorism expert. We had John Woo come in, who wrote the torture memos for the United States government. So this program is giving you the best of the best as far as instructors. I could say nothing bad about any of the instructors. They were all very well educated and what I would consider subject matter experts in their fields. Really impressive, and that was one of my favorite parts of the program.
Jason, do you have anything to add about the instructors?
Key on what Amanda said, that they had an excellent degree of real-world experience combined with academic backgrounds, and being able to learn from people who served in the field but have that background was a lot more meaningful than either hearing from people who had studied it relentlessly but had never put a boot on the ground, or people who had a lot of boots on the ground but had never put any academic rigor behind their thought and offering more of just their opinion. And that combination of people, along with their dedication to the students, is one of the things that makes the program go from good to outstanding. I'd like to think I've got good relationships with a bunch of my instructors. I can call them up today and it'll be just like we're still a student-teacher relationship. They're excellent about continuing that relationship past your academic journey. And as they'll say kindly, that they learn as much from us as we do from them. And so it becomes a partnership with those people.
Thank you. A couple more questions. We had a question here about, will the program continue with its flexible remote learning in place? We are obviously monitoring, as all of you are, what the current and immediate future looks like. And we have options on the table. One, to make sure that everyone that is in the programs continue uninterrupted, but two, that we meet the needs of everyone. Knowing that for some agencies, travel may be restricted, while others it may not be, and some folks and participants might be in a high risk category and may face some challenges that others do not. All of those things are being discussed, and all of those things are being taken into account as we build options looking at the next year going forward. And by the way, I would say that the current students are all playing an active role in that process. Everything we do, all of our programs are very unique in that these are not the faculty teaching to the students all the time. The participants in the program are teaching back to all of the faculty just as much. And that goes for how we structure the program, when it meets, how it meets, and how the instruction is delivered. We're heavily evaluated by all of the participants. Every cohort that goes through leaves its marks and suggestions that are then incorporated and utilized in the next evolution of the program. And question about the funding for the program is that the 18-month program crosses budget years. And the way we have that structured is that with people come in and are accepted into a cohort, the money is there to complete the 18 months. You're not going to get caught in the middle, and you won't be able to finish your education. All right, let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about the Executive Leaders Program. why that master's degree program is an 18-month deep dive into the material. That can pose a challenge for a lot of folks, and depending where they are in their career and demands of their job and personal life may not be an option. So for those at the senior ranks, and we leave it up to each agency and department to sort of define what that is, because around the country, we have different size agencies and organizations, and they use different titles. So we let you decide where those leadership levels are that are appropriate for the Executive Leaders Program. But we are looking for executive decision makers that qualify for the program. So we designed it with more flexibility in mind. It's a 1-year program. You come together each quarter for 1 week in residence, which are held in Monterey, California. And obviously, we are going through the same process with those in residencies in terms of the COVID-19 current situation as we are with the master's degree. But under normal operating conditions, it's 4 1-week sessions, 1 week each quarter over a year, Monterey, California. We use the same methodology for building the cohorts, local, state, federal, territorial, tribal, but we do include the private sector. And we look geographically. We're looking all around the country. We're looking for big city, small rural areas, variety of different states, as well as all of the different federal partners. And all of the agencies and departments, whether you're part of DHS or not, are eligible to have all the tuition and travel and expenses covered for this program. So there should not be any out of pocket whatsoever. In terms of the content, we're able to cherry pick a lot of the issues and best discussions out of the master's degree program and incorporate them into the Executive Leaders Program. But because it's not a degree granting course, we're able to be a little more flexible and dynamic. So we want to hear from folks both during the application process and when the cohorts start the program, what's on their mind? What are those emerging issues that keep them up at night, that their agencies and departments are facing, that their companies are having to deal with globally around the world? And we build them into the curriculum so that each of these 1-week curriculums are different for each of the cohorts, so that it meets their needs, their interests that they're bringing to the table. And because these are very experienced executives coming to this roundtable discussion and debate type of environment, we also incorporate time for many of them. For example, when there's a national event that has just occurred, and it's not unusual for one of the participants to have been involved in the response, having to manage and lead that. So we'll carve out time for them to come and talk about their lessons learned with the cohort, and let the cohort learn. We have a thing called Monterey Rules, which is discussions and debates are only helpful if you can talk honestly and openly. So those discussions remain in Monterey for that purpose, so that we can really learn and lay our cards on the table. So a member of the Executive Leaders Program can sit there and know, if this happens in my jurisdiction, if this happens to my agency or my company, I'm getting the advice of someone that's been through it, what worked, what didn't work. We don't have the rigorous demand of the online work in between the in-residency that we have with the master's degree program. We do have recommended readings and some other materials so that we're engaging people. We're working on those critical thinking skills. People are coming into the in-residencies with some base common knowledge so that we can then leap right into the discussion and debate. We try and stay away from all lecture type of approaches in all of our programs, because those things can be done. They can be recorded. They can be done online. We can do that through video. We try and use that face-to-face time for all of you to bring your perspectives and experiences into the classroom and share them, and to ask questions, bringing in very well-known subject matter experts from all around the world, and you being able to engage them and ask them questions in a way that's meaningful and helpful to all of you. So I'm going to pause there for a second. Heather, application process for the Executive Leaders Program.
Yeah, this is easy comparative to the master's in terms of the content. They want you to be interesting. So they want you to identify the gaps that you have in your agency, in your region, in your state, and they want to make sure that you are actually going to take something and use it. So you're making the case with 200 other applicants. That's the usual pool we have to select from. all very interesting folks like yourselves, but you're competing and making a case for the criticality of your position in Homeland Security. And so making sure that you talk about what you want to get from the class to take back to your agency will be an enhancement of your application score. So the application is on our website. Again, if you're DHS, you have internal folks, your POCs that are listed here on the website. The application is here. We do require a letter of recommendation from your boss, the person who grants your time away, and that one letter for the Executive Leaders Program. It's about 5 questions, and just be thoughtful in your responses and talk about what you're going to give to the class in terms of your expertise, but also what you're going to want to take away.
Heather, can you talk a little bit, and I can't remember if you mentioned this about the master's program, about not all applicants being able to get in the first time. And of course, part of that is us wanting to craft a diverse, well-rounded cohort to make sure that it's a good learning environment for everybody.
Yeah, I saw some questions about that. It is an unusual, especially with the Executive Leaders Program, just because so many people do want to get in. We get about 50 more applications per period for ELP. So folks get in on their 3rd, 4th, and even 5th time. And a lot of that has to do with spacing out and trying to be as diverse as possible in the classroom. And we just have a large number of folks who want to get in, but only 32 seats, as David said. So there's no bias if you don't get in the first time. Just retool your application. You can always call us and we'll go over that with you and make sure you're as competitive as possible for the program.
Derek, you want to share with us your experience and as a senior leader, what you got out of the program?
I'd love to. It was incredible, and I think they are very deliberate in the classmates that they select, because we had a broad diversification of classmates that were in there. And I first got to say that Heather's a great asset for questions, helping you through the process, because even the ELP application might seem a little daunting, like the master's, but everyone wants you to be successful, and what you get out of this is incredible. I know this was touched on a little, but out of all the classes I've taken, been National Fire Academy and other facilities, but the instructors here by far are just don't even compare to any type of conference or classes or classes I've attended at universities. They do a very good job of vetting those personnel that have incredible experience that relate to issues ongoing in our community. And we still have a group, about 15 of us, that shares regular emails if we have a question or concern or just need some help, that you shoot out and everyone gets back to you. And you learn a tremendous amount in class, but then even afterwards, at nights, on weekends with your group, the bonds that you have and what they've been through, and then how you impact each other. Just from a fire department, I didn't know how much we impacted public health you deal with in your locality, but the stuff that you can share between each other, and especially the federal agencies, of what they have to go through, and kind of gives us a very good perspective. And one of my favorite instructors was John Wu. I know Amanda mentioned him, but just the experience that he's had and brings to our class and talks about really helped me improve my critical thinking skills, and to bring that back to my community and just improve my local region, and just with those relationships was incredible.
Thank you. Looking over at the Q&A, we have a couple of questions here. One was asking about transferring some credits into the program. I'm assuming you might be talking about the master's. The Executive Leaders Program is a certificate program. It does not grant academic credit, so transferring of credits and things don't apply there. Same thing with the master's degree. Even though you're working towards a degree, the experience, as you probably have heard, is different from a traditional. It's not about getting the degree. It's about the 18-month transformational process that you go through with 32 other individuals in your cohort. And because the learning model is built so much around the experience that that cohort brings together and how they go through those 18 months, it doesn't lend itself to people bringing credits and things in. It's a standalone experience, start to finish. So just as one of the alumnus said, if you're trying to sort of check a box to get a degree, this may not be a good match for you. Another question was, what happens if you're unable to attend one of the in-residencies? And this has happened certainly during some of the significant national events we have had. In the master's degree program, if it's going to be an extended period of time that someone is unable to perform the work, they've been able to freeze their participation, say for a quarter or two, and then pick up with the cohort behind them where they left off. They don't need to reapply. They just need to freeze their participation and continue on. If it's more short term, the faculty, their cohort members are there. They take turns picking each other up, supporting one another, because everyone goes through life and professional ups and downs during that 18 months. Same is true with the Executive Leaders Program. If someone is unable to attend week 2 because something happens and they're out leading the response, we understand that. That's the reality of your lives. You finish the program with your cohort, and you can pick up week 2 with the cohort behind you. And then you get an added bonus there of developing some relationships with another cohort of executive leaders. But we're flexible because we know we have to be, because that's the world that all of you live in.
One quick question about a service requirement. For DHS, you do have a service requirement to stay in federal service for about 2 years. If you're local, state, or other federal, we just ask that you stay in a Homeland Security related field for a year. So for DHS, it's about 2 years. For us, for local, state, and other feds, it's 1 year service.
And Heather, do we see people that are alumni of one of the 3 programs applying to other programs? There's a question here about that.
Yes, we've had that. You have to make a significant case about the time that's elapsed, and if you ascended ranks, so if you're in a higher position and would like to be part of our Executive Leaders Program, you have to make that case. But it has been done and has added a lot of value to our classroom to have those master's grads in the Executive Program. And the Emergence in the master's program as well. We've had Emergence alum apply and get into the master's program.
For the cohorts that we are recruiting for the masters, the ELP, and Emergence, the dates going out a year or 2 are listed on the individual program website, so you can find those there.
Yeah, I want to answer this question about, for the alumni, the alumni can answer it. Do you feel the master's degree from CHDS has opened additional doors for your career? I can just say, just watching this over the last 17 years, I've lost count of how many positions have been enhanced and promotions have been received because of the degree. So you guys can talk about your experiences with that as well. Amanda?
Yeah, it definitely enhanced my knowledge of the field alone, but also I have been promoted and I graduated from the program of like COVID-19 because you have a master's degree from Naval Postgraduate School. So it also affords you more responsibilities at your agencies because they know that you're the educated individual that is leading the way. So keep that in mind, but it's definitely a benefit. I can't speak enough about how fortunate I feel to have been afforded the opportunity to be in the program. And what I learned from it is
there was an emergency management position in Texas that used our degree as a preferred prerequisite. And so that shows the evolution of the degree and the value of the degree to the local, state, and the federal audience that we have. Jason, any words of wisdom there?
Yeah, I just echo what you and Amanda both said, right? The number of my cohort mates that were promoted or recruited into new positions while we were still in the program was frankly amazing. And in keeping track of, what my friends are doing, the opportunities that they make for themselves within their existing organizations that may or may not lead to a promotion, but what they're doing is truly moving Homeland Security enterprise forward. And so whether it's another job, a promotion, or just being able to excel at your position, the degree from CHDS and the Naval Postgraduate School is a pretty big benchmark that I think is making a difference both because you have that piece of paper from this institution, or because of what you learned there and how the alumni are applying it are changing things.
And if I could for 1 second, just mention that what Jason said is so true. You know, this degree isn't really about getting promoted. This degree is about moving Homeland Security forward and, you know, making the best decisions for our profession. It's not about personal attributes, and that's what they teach you in this program. It's that whole approach instead of worrying about whether you're going to get a promotion or not.
It's kind of nice to get one, though, just to say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you. So our third leg of the stool here is the Emergence Program. So we have the master's degree program, which covers a wide span of the career, from folks that are emerging leaders all the way up to the most senior folks in an organization. We have the Executive Leaders Program, which is designed for the folks in the second half of their career that are at that leadership executive decision making. And what we realized in the last few years is we were spending more and more time in the Master's and Executive Leaders Program talking about the changing workforce, talking about the turnover in knowledge as well as staff positions. And we realized we really weren't offering anything to help solve that problem. So we designed the Emergence Program around that. It's the complement of the Executive Leaders Program. It's for the folks in the first half of the career path that are those emerging leaders within their organizations, and to provide them the same type of educational experience. If we do our job right and someone comes into one of our three programs, they leave looking at the world differently, looking at their jobs differently, and doing their jobs differently. And that's certainly what we want the folks in the Emergence Program to do. So it's a 6-month program. It's hybrid, just like the master's degree. Your first 3 months are going to be distance learning with a lot of the online work. It does not require everyone to be online at the same time. A lot of it you can do at your own pace and style, and set up times to speak with the instructors as you go through that. Then we have a 6-day in residence. The way this is working right now in the last couple of years is that we start in July, August, September. We do that distance learning. And then end of September, beginning of October, we have a 6-day in residence. And then we have another 3 months of distance learning, and then another week of in residence in January where we wrap it up. So it's roughly approximately 6 months start to finish. We're looking for that same mixture in the cohort: local, state, federal, territorial, tribal, and private sector. All Homeland Security, public safety related disciplines represented, and the cross-section of the country. So we have that snapshot sitting around, I want to say sitting around the table. We do pods with, people in groups of, 6, 7 tables, so people can rotate every day and build that professional network. And we're not in a traditional classroom that's set up lecture style. Our classrooms are set up so everyone can engage with one another and with whomever the guest speaker is at the time. A big part of the Emergence Program, in addition to looking at emerging risks and threats and trends in our society, is looking at how to be a change agent within your organization. So we spend time teaching folks, how do you take an idea for change, how we can do something different within our organization? How do you identify those gaps? And then how do you develop that and make a pitch to your leadership and get their support to then actually build out a program or initiative or a public policy and implement it. And our expectation is everyone does implement it. And about 75% of the participants are successful in taking that change initiative, selling it to their leadership, and actually going ahead and implementing it and seeing the change that that brings within their organization, region, jurisdiction, et cetera. So we look at some of the same topics as the Masters and Executive Leaders Program, but we also customize it the same way that the Executive Leaders Program does to reflect the cohort makeup and some of the topics that are happening at the time and that the cohort wants to speak about. The application process is more akin to the Executive Leaders Program than the Masters because it is a certificate program versus a degree program. With the Emergence Program, for the June 30th deadline, a current resume, there's a short essay, trying to get your idea of a gap that you might want to address, a problem that you want to solve in your agency. It gives us a sense of what it is you want to focus on and what you're bringing to the table. A letter of support from your agency, a recommendation. We don't admit anyone to any of our programs unless we can do it in partnership with the support of the agency and the supervisors. And then we also have something a little different. We have a creative submission. This can be anything. It can be written. It can be a video you record. It just gives us a way to learn a little bit more about you beyond the paper exercise, get to know you, see what's important to you beyond just the professional side of things, because we're really looking for the well-rounded individual. So I'm going to pause there, and I am going to turn to Laura, who's an alumna of the Emergence Program down in New Orleans.
Yeah, so Emergence was a really great program. I was so happy to be a part of it. I think one of the most unique parts of the program was this idea of coming with a project, because it really grounds you and your fellow cohort members in something tangible that you can be working on as a group. I got a lot of really great feedback from people outside of my field on my project, and it really helped us sort of move through the 6 months of the program. So that was really unique, and the project that I worked on was successful, and I think especially helped me be able to grow in my career, especially now during a global pandemic. I'm using a lot of the skills to very quickly implement projects like that, so that it was a great experience to build off of.
Great. And Laura, how was it different maybe from some other government training education programs that you went through?
Well, I mean, I think that just generally the group of people that you're working with are coming from all of these different fields, which is unusual. You know, a lot of the other programs I've gone to, trainings or conferences, are really focused on one sector specifically. So I think that was really useful. And then I think it's kind of a hybrid. It feels a lot like a college classroom. So you have this really intellectual conversation going on with a group of people who you might not ever sit down with in another setting. And you're talking about these really important, large picture topics that are all related to our fields, but that we might not have time in our daily lives to sit down and think through in a really critical way.
And we often get the question of the distance learning component of the hybrid models, like the master's degree in Emergence. What is the amount of time spent? I think roughly most of the master's alum we've heard will say somewhere between 15 to 18 hours per week is what they spend during the 18 months. With the Emergence program, the expectation is much more along the lines of 3 to 5 hours per week. And a lot of that has to do with the research that you're doing and work you're doing on your project with your change initiative. And if I remember right, Laura, you actually won an award from the mayor for your project. Is that correct?
I did, yeah. I mean, it was a really perfect timing, because my project was on Mardi Gras. It was an app to better communicate with our residents about what the impacts of Mardi Gras and parades were going to be to their daily lives. And so that was along the same timeline of the Emergence program. So I was able to work through the cohort on my project, implement it, and then I did receive an award from the mayor, me and a team of IT professionals, not just me, for the app that we developed.
It's always nice to give credit to the team. Good job. Heather, we got about 5 minutes left. Why don't you go ahead and touch a little bit about our alumni and their continued role, and then we can get some final thoughts from all of our alumni panelists here.
Yeah, so these programs are all meant to help you enhance your critical thinking skills, like David said, but also to solve some of the problems that really keep you up at night. What are the things that really get you that you think you can solve through having access to so many academics and practitioners who might have been through the same issue you have been through. And the alumni, once you're part of us, you can't get away. We call it the La Familia. So we have lots of opportunities for our alumni for job opportunities, and also every year we bring you back for 3 days, and we bring everybody together. We don't break out or anything like that. We're all in one big room, and we're talking about homeland security issues that are relevant. In fact, this last February, we were talking about COVID before it was a thing, if you can even remember back that far. So it's a great time to get your, kind of get those juices going again and network with a lot of people. A lot of private sector alumni are there. And it's just a great opportunity for 3 days. And there's no registration cost, nothing like that. We just want to get everybody together and collaborating. We do that online as well. Right now we're meeting every other week talking about issues surrounding COVID. It's like a real-time fusion center. You know, NYPD is talking to Santa Monica Police Department, who's talking to Tallahassee and the public health department there. So it's a great opportunity to continue networking even after you graduate.
Heather, why don't we go around and get some final thoughts from our alumni panelists, if there's anything that we failed to mention or that you want to reiterate, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right, Derek, let's start with you, but could you just give advice to people who think they might be too busy as well?
I had the same concern too, and I think what you get out of it, what you're definitely going to get back, and take the opportunity. All the programs that were discussed today here are incredible. The caliber of instructors and the staff, you will not be disappointed. It's I can't say enough for the program and the entire Naval Postgraduate Academy, what they have. It's very well worth the time. Don't get intimidated by the application. Just take small bites. But it'll be definitely worth the time and effort you put into it, and you will make the time because you'll find out how important it is. And thanks for allowing me to be here.
Amanda.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up something that wasn't what really talked about is what you learn from your cohort's thesis. They spend their heart and soul making that thesis. So being able to read some of those and see what comes out as far as recommendations, it's some incredible work. So that's a big part of the program for the master's program, at least. I like obviously the instruction and everything is great. The relationships you build are something that lasts way beyond the program. The networking, the ability to reach out at any time of day or night on a forum that Heather has set up and that the team there has set up for alumni and anybody who's in the program, leaving a question and getting it actually answered. It's not just ignored. People actually take time and answer your questions far beyond what the program itself is. And I can't speak enough about how great it is and how fortunate I was to be a part of it. And if anybody has any offline questions, I'm more than willing to share my email with people who might be a little shy to ask the question on the Q&A.
Jason?
I've got 3 quick points, Heather. For the people considering the master's degree program, one of the people who steered me to the program said, and they know me, and they just said, Jason, it's going to be really hard. I wish you would have been a little stronger and said it's going to be really hard. You need to put away, 15 to 20 hours a week to do it, and you need to figure out how to do it before you start, and you have to be committed to finish. But if you're that kind of person and you can make those sacrifices and plans going into it, it will be the most rewarding experience likely of your career. Second point, you won't find an organization that will support you better than the Center for Homeland Defense and Security. As Heather said, writing coach, librarian, editors, people to read your paper, people to take care of your travel and reimbursement. All of that is first class. The trade-off is that you need to be prepared to do the work when you get here and when you're away from here. But CHDS will have your back. One thing Heather didn't mention is lifelong access to the Dudley Knox Library. Whenever I have a technical question or a problem, my problem is trying to go through all of the first-rate information that I have access to through CHDS and NPS to find the answer. It's definitely not a lack of resources, even as an alumni. And the final thing I wanted to say is that I assume there's a bunch of senior leaders and decision makers on here. I'd like to stump you, or not stump you, but encourage you to find those emerging leaders in your organization and make them get their application into Emergence. Our organization is very strong on succession planning, and we have one of our firefighters who's maybe a 4-year guy, just graduated from the Emergence Program. And the benefits that I see in our firefighter, the changes I see in him, our organization is going to get a career-long return on investment from him for the 2 weeks that we sent him here. So if you want leaders like you, I mean, you guys, the people who are here, you want to do the best you can, pick those people out in your organization and get them into the Emergence Program because your organization will be stronger for it when it's your time to move on.
That's excellent. Thank you, Jason. Laura, what did we miss?
Well, if you're thinking about Emergence, I would say you should definitely do it. It's an excellent program, but it's really just the beginning. We finished the program a year ago, and I don't think any of my cohort members or I thought that we would be in a global pandemic in 1 year. And the relationships that you build in this program are going to stay with you for a long time. I've been working with cohort members across the country that are responding to this pandemic in different ways, and we're bouncing ideas off of each other. And I would not have that network if I hadn't done this program.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, guys. Thanks for being here today. David?
I would just encourage everyone, whether you go ahead and apply or not, check out the CHDS website. There's a lot of resources on there. We have a digital library that was mentioned. We have a number of webinars that have been recorded, learning modules. We're built with an open source model. So all of the materials and tools we develop with taxpayers' dollars for our programs, we put on the website so that you can take advantage of them. We have self-paced courses. We have a online journal if you'd like to write. All of these things are available to you. Our executive education program has moved many of its offerings that they usually do around the country in person. They've moved online doing interactive webinars and being able to record those. So those are all up there for resources for all of you to take advantage of. You do not have to be in our programs or an alumnus. We are a national resource that serves you and your agencies each day. Let us know how we can help. If you have any questions about any of the programs and the application process, just shoot us an email. Go to each of the program pages. There's emails, phone numbers, and answers to a lot of the questions that you've been asking on each of those application pages. So please go ahead, apply. June 30th is the deadline, and let us know how we can support you. Heather?
Yeah, we just thank you for your time today and look forward to your applications. Please contact us. We'll pair you up with mentors from our alumni pool. They're happy to help you. They're not going to write your pages for you, but they will help you with the general outline, okay? And we are here to serve. We want everybody to be as competitive as possible for the process. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.